Today, we're diving into a chilling case that rocked a small town in Texas. Get ready for the jaw-dropping story of Candy Montgomery, a crime that shocked the nation and continues to baffle investigators and true crime enthusiasts to this day. From the outside, it appeared that Candy Montgomery was living the perfect life: 2 children, a loving husband, and a best friend who she trusted profusely. However, the 30-year-old Christian woman from Collin County, Texas, got bored of her mundane routine and began an affair with the husband of her best friend, Betty Gore, and when Betty found out about it, Candy brutally murdered her. Candy Montgomery and Betty Gore had a lot in common. They sang together in the Methodist church choir, their daughters were best friends, and their husbands had good jobs working for technology companies in the North Dallas suburbs known as Silicon Prairie. But beneath the placid surface of their seemingly perfect lives, both women simmered with unspoken frustrations and unanswered desires. Who were Candy Montgomery and Betty Gore? Candace "Candy" Wheeler was born in Lucas, Texas, in 1951. Raised as a military brat, she spent most of her childhood moving between different military towns. She met Pat Montgomery, an electrical engineer, who worked at Texas Instruments, and the pair quickly got married. They bought a beautiful home in the town of Wiley, and in 1973 they had a daughter named Jenny, and in October 1974, a son named Ian. Candy, a housewife, met Betty, a middle school teacher, at a service at the United Methodist Church of Lucas in Collin County, Texas, and they became close friends. Betty and her husband, Alan, also lived close to Candy, her husband, Pat, and her 2 children. Betty met her husband Alan while working as a teaching assistant in college. The couple got married in 1970 and had a daughter named Elisa before they moved to Collin County. Alan was an engineer just like Pat Montgomery and worked at Rockwell International. The young daughters, Elisa and Jenny, became best friends and completely inseparable. During the summer of 1978, Candy and Alan's connection deepened, leading to an affair. It all started during a church volleyball game when Candy and Alan accidentally bumped into each other. Candy was captivated by the scent of Alan, which piqued her interest. She confided in her friends about her desire to shake up her very boring life with Pat and seek excitement and passion. Weeks later, Candy, who had known Alan for 9 months at that point, asked Alan to talk in his car after choir practice. "I want to talk to you sometime about something that has been bothering me," Candy asked Alan, according to Texas Monthly as she got into the passenger seat of his car. "I've been thinking about you a lot and it's really bothering me and I don't know whether I want you to do anything about it or not. I'm very attracted to you and I'm tired of thinking about it and so I wanted to tell you." Candy then exited Alan's car before he could say anything. A week later, Candy and Alan saw each other again at choir practice, and Alan walked Candy to her car, where Candy asked if he wanted to have an affair. Alan told her that he wasn't sure because Betty was pregnant with their second child. Candy told him that all she wanted was to sleep with him once. Alan then kissed Candy for the first time in her car before he left. Candy and Alan continued to stay in touch, as Alan warmed up to the idea of an affair and agreed to sleep with Candy. They had sex with each other for the first time on December 12, 1978, at a Continental Inn 3 minutes away from Alan's home. Alan and Candy went on to sleep with each other almost every other week throughout the end of 1978 and the start of 1979. In June 1979, Alan and Candy agreed to pause their affair because Betty was 7 months pregnant and almost ready to give birth. After Alan and Betty's baby, Bethany, was born in July 1979, Alan and Candy resumed their affair, with Alan realizing that Candy was more reserved than before. A few months later, Alan told Candy that he wanted to end their affair after he and Betty completed a marriage encounter program, a faith-based program to improve couples' relationships. How and why did Candy kill Betty? On June 13, 1980, Candy visited Betty's home to pick up a swimsuit for Betty's daughter, Elisa, who was staying with Candy and her husband, Pat, for the night. While at Betty's home, Betty accused Candy of having an affair with her husband, Alan, which Candy confessed to and told Betty that the infidelity happened a long time ago. According to Candy, Betty then left the room and came back with an axe, which she used to threaten Candy with, and ordered Candy never to see Alan again, which she agreed to. As she picked up Elisa's swimsuit to leave, Candy apologized, which caused Betty to become angry and shove her into a utility room. A struggle ensued between Candy and Betty that caused cuts on Candy's toe and head. Candy also claimed that Betty told her she wanted to kill her. During their fight, Candy was able to take the axe away from Betty and used the blade on Betty in self-defense before her friend could attack her again. In terror that she had killed Betty, Candy tried to leave the room, but before she could do so, Betty stopped her by slamming her body against the door. According to Texas Monthly, during the fight, Betty told Candy to shush, which set Candy off and caused her to hit her with the axe to the point of utter exhaustion. During her hypnosis session, Candy claimed that she suffered from childhood trauma that was triggered when she was told to shush. On the day of Betty's alleged murder, Alan was out of town. Alan Gore began to panic when he couldn't contact his wife. He called Richard Parker, his neighbor, and asked if he would go and check on her, which he did, accompanied by Lester Gaylor and Jerry McMahon. Alan also contacted Montgomery, who told him that she had seen Betty earlier and she was sure everything was all right. Gaylor recalled how they found thick, congealed reddish-brown oceans of blood glistening on the tiles, leading to the body of Betty Gore, which was discovered in the utility room. Betty and Alan's 1-year-old baby daughter, Bethany, who had been sleeping in her crib in another room at the time of the incident, was crying and awake. A few feet away from Betty was a 3-foot-long axe, which authorities claimed that Candy used to slash Betty 41 times, including 28 times on her head and face. Her arms, legs, and torso were also completely decapitated. After the violent event had taken place, Candy Montgomery simply returned home and acted as if nothing had happened. Alan called Montgomery again at 11:30 p.m. and told her that his wife Betty was dead. When police arrived at the grisly scene, they noticed a bloody shoe print. They also saw blood on the bathroom wall and drain, which gave them the impression that the killer had cleaned themselves before leaving the property. Stephen Defibog, a Collin County investigator, immediately believed the killer was either underage or female due to the print. Although unbeknown to authorities yet, Candy Montgomery had used garden shears to cut up her sandals when she saw that the incident was being reported in the news. Montgomery was believed to have been the last person to see Betty alive, so she was quickly questioned by police. She told the authorities that she had gone to the Gore house early in the morning to collect Elisa's swimsuit before leaving to go and teach Bible class. A 5-year-old friend of Elisa's who had come to play with her, recalled how she had seen Montgomery leave the house at 11 a.m. Alan revealed to the police that he and Candy had an affair, which gave authorities a motive for Betty's death. Montgomery also refused to take a polygraph test. The police arrested Candy, who was the last person to see Betty alive, and charged her with murder. Prison officers noted that Montgomery had bruises on her head and they noticed cuts on her toe when she was changing into her prison uniform. How was Montgomery's trial? To represent her in the case, Candy hired Don Crowder, a lawyer she knew from church, who found Dr. Fred Faison, a psychiatrist, to help Candy unlock the memories she couldn't recall. During a hypnosis session with Dr. Faison, Candy revealed that she hated Betty. "I hate her. She's messed up my whole life. Look at this. I hate her. I hate her," she said. Dr. Faison then asked Candy to recall the first time she remembers feeling angry, which was when she was 4 years old and lost a race to a boy named Johnny, which caused her to break a jar. The incident led Candy's mother to take her to the hospital, where her mother told her to shush. In the next few sessions, Dr. Faison determined that Candy's childhood trauma and the memory of her mother telling her to shush in a painful moment was what triggered Candy's rage to kill Betty, who also told her to shush before Candy killed her. After an 8-day trial, where the defense argued that Candy acted in self-defense and the prosecution argued that Betty was conscious when most of the stabs happened and that her death was intentional, Candy was found not guilty and acquitted of murder in October 1980. She never served time behind bars. Psychiatrists testified at the trial and claimed that Candy had a dissociative reaction that led her to stab Betty repeatedly. The violent death was also protected under Texas' Stand Your Ground law, which permits the use of deadly force if necessary to prevent a violent crime, such as Betty's violent threats against Candy. Where is Candy Montgomery now? According to Texas Monthly, Candy and her husband, Pat, left Texas soon after the trial in 1980 and moved to Georgia. They divorced 4 years later. According to Entertainment Weekly, Candy changed her name back to Candace Wheeler, her maiden name, and still lives in Georgia, where she works as a mental health counselor with her daughter, Jenny.